It may not be as great of an edge class as recent years, but there is a clear-cut number one. That is Bradley Chubb. Brendan Albert is here. I am Adrian Fedke. So I would think you would agree with me. Bradley Chubb and then the rest of these cats.
Yeah, I think there's a big jump off too, honestly, Adrian. So I would agree with you. Bradley Chubb's the dude at number one. I don't think either of us are really going to talk too much about him. But again, I talked about this last year when we did this. It's all about where you line up because Bradley Chubb, do I think he's necessarily a great fit in 3-4? No. So even though I think he's the best fit, he might not be the best – I should take that back. He's the best player. He might not be the best fit for a 3-4 team. And we'll talk more about how you look at guys' system and line setting up and why they fit up in those areas in a minute.
Yeah, and the one team that keeps kind of getting mocked with Bradley Chubb is the Colts. And you talk about the 3-4 there. They're in 4-3 now.
Yep, just making that move to the 4-3, so it really makes a lot of sense for them now. It used to be historically we're that 3-4 team. They're making that jump to the 4-3, so it makes even more sense there for him at 6. The big question is, will he be there at 6?
Well, I've been mistaken. So they get a new that's right. They got a new coach and all that good stuff. That's right. All right, so, yeah, he's going 6 because what's going to happen is Barkley might go at number 2 or you're going to take a bunch of quarterbacks in the top 5, and I can see Bradley Chubb being there at 6. And if it's not Bradley Chubb, then it's probably Quentin Nelson. But, all right, that's another discussion for another day. All right, so let's get into our rankings. As we kind of explained, Bradley Chubb, he's going to be the number one guy. I mean, you talk about the explosiveness and the power and just how quick he can shed blocks. I think he's the clear-cut number one, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Adrian. I think he's closer to a Joey Bosa type dude in that he wins with physicality, power, and awesome shedding abilities. He's not an elite level athlete, but that's okay. He's an elite level competitor. I mean, my favorite things about Bradley Chubb is the stories about how every day he's in a full sprint to get onto the practice field because he's so excited to practice. I think it's just such a small thing. I know it, but I think it's really freaking cool. And the other thing I love about it is I love, especially when you go back and you watch him when he played Clemson, he's pulling the towels away from the quarterbacks, just getting in their heads. I love that, man. I mean, he's a complete competitor. He's exactly what I would want in my locker room, especially if I'm going somewhere like I'm Indianapolis where the defense is pretty disappointing. You need an alpha dog, and he definitely is that in spades.
Yeah, and, we look at last year and who the number one pick was, and that was Myles Garrett. And kind of different players here when you look at the two because you look at Garrett, he's like this physical freak and this specimen, and Chubb really isn't that. He's got the power, he's got the explosiveness. Two kind of completely different players.
Yeah, I mean, especially when we talk about where they lined up, Myles can line up all up and down. I wouldn't put Bradley Chubb in a 3-4, but Myles Garrett 3-4, 4-3, I'm good either way with him. So I think that whole argument of Bradley Chubb's better prospect, I think that's a little bit far-fetched, but he's still a damn good defensive end.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to number 2, and I kind of explained. I mean, not really that great of an edge rush class. So if it's not a great class, and I'm looking at the number 2 guy, give me the guy with upside. And I don't know if there's a guy with more upside than Marcus Davenport in this draft. Definitely a little bit raw, but I like what I saw on tape. And not a lot of great competition, but. I saw a guy that can get off blocks. I saw a guy that can kind of win with a bull rush. I like this bull rush ability. So and a lot of length. I mean, you can see when you watch all the guys back to back and you see his arms compared to everybody else's, you can see it. And he also bats down a lot of balls at the line of scrimmage. That's the other thing I noticed. So
yeah,
Marcus Davenport, that's my number 2.
I'm with you there, man. He's my 2 guy. I mean, he was a power forward before you decided to start playing football and maybe go in the NFL. What a nice backup plan he obviously had. So you talk about length, 6'6", and even when you look at him, you're like, oh yeah, he really is 6'6", super long arms. Numbers are pretty even with Bradley Chubb, at least at the combine, pretty even across the board. The difference is just super raw. I wouldn't be surprised to see him become a guy like a Julius Peppers. Obviously, the basketball background makes a ton of sense, but be a guy who could be a freaking stud moving forward. But he is a little bit raw. He is the second best guy in this class, in my opinion, too, for the same reason Adrian's talked about. It's not an elite class, so let's go with the upside guy. So, yeah, I have my 2 guy as well, Marcus Davenport from University of Texas, San Antonio. Never thought we'd say that in one of these shows, huh, brother?
The Roadrunners, baby. The Roadrunners, yeah. All right, so we got our 1, we got our 2. It's the same thing. I think this is where we're going to kind of go a little different ways. This is where we got the fork in the road, and you're going this way, I'm going that way. So my number 3 guy is a little bit off the board. I started watching some of these prospects and like guys like Harold Landry and Arden Key, and I'm just like, I wasn't that impressed with him. And then I saw Duke Ejiofor of Wake Forest, and I saw some really good tape. Now I don't know if he's going to work in the NFL because I don't know if he's like the athlete that some of these other guys are. But I saw a guy that won with a consistent swim move. I mean, his swim move is pretty damn deadly. Tight little spin move too. So he's constantly in the backfield. He seems like he's got a really high football IQ because even when he gets one-on-one on the edge, I've seen him take down, like when they played Clemson, he would get Bryant out on the edge and he would take him down. So I was impressed with his tape. We'll see if it translates. I mean, I'm kind of trying to hit a home run here with Duke Ejiofor, but that's my number 3.
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy. I think he's probably more of a 4-3 defensive end. We don't have a ton of 3-4 stand-up guys. So for me, mine's going to be Hubbard from Ohio State. Former lacrosse guy, was committed to Notre Dame, so he's a true athlete and was all set to go to Notre Dame until Urban Meyer was like, hey, why don't you come to Ohio State and play defensive end for me? Okay, again, what a nice backup plan. These defensive ends, man, their backup plans are just playing in the NFL. It makes me like half hate them and half just like, man, you guys got it going on. So Hubbard here, he's a physical guy, not an elite athlete. He's not necessarily the same Joey Bosa type, but when you go to programs like Ohio State or Alabama, the knock on you a lot of times is, well, he doesn't have a lot of film. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of film because he's playing behind a first-round pick. So it's like I can't fault him one way or another, but yeah, he's going to be my 3 guy. He just screams, honestly, New England Patriot. Just a physical edge rusher off the edge, Rob Ninkovich type dude. I just think he's going to be a really good, long-lasting all-pro. Probably not, but he's going to be a long-lasting NFL player. So he's my 3 defensive end, or my edge player, I should say, Adrian.
Yeah. Yeah, and by long-lasting, you're basically saying he's probably the guy with the highest floor.
Yes.
Among rushers, and he's my number 4 because I saw a guy that's pretty consistent, and some of these other guys that I watch, I didn't see a lot of consistency. So Sam Hubbard will be my number 4. Definitely not the most explosive athlete in the draft, but knows how to use his hands. That's what I kind of noticed, and consistently makes plays. So his tape is solid, and he's going to be a solid player. So give me him at number 4. That's Sam Hubbard of Ohio State.
I hear you. Now, my 4 guy was the guy a lot of people said was the best senior coming into the 2018 class before the season even started, and that's Harold Landry coming out of Boston College. 2016 was just an absolute wrecking crew. Came back for one more year, had a bad season, injuries, performance didn't look great. Now, maybe you can say, well, performance is tied to the injuries, but then you're saying, well, maybe are the injuries that concerning? Stature's not a big deal. Let me double-check here. Yep, 6'3", 252. That's not big enough to really stand up. You're going to have to put your hand in the dirt and be a 4-3 defensive end. But there's a fair concern of, hey, can he drop anchor and really stop the run? If I'm being positive, Paul, I could say he's very polished. I know what I'm getting of him when I look at 2016. But if I look at 2017, it's a whole different situation when you're a marked man like he was. So he's my 4 guy, but I like him, Adrian, because I think he's pretty polished.
Yeah, I guess my question there would be how can his production fall so drastically from 2016 to 2017? Is that just adjustments teams made, or is that on him?
There's a lot of factors. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely adjustments. There's no doubt he was a marked man at Boston College, and it's not like that Boston College defense. There's a lot of NFL studs that can cover up for him. He was injured, missed a good amount of games, probably tried to rush back from the injury. So there's a lot of different factors in there, Adrian. So it just becomes a thing of, or do you believe more in the 2016 version of him or the 2017? I'm giving him the 2016, and I think he's probably the 3rd, 4th. I think him and Hubbard are pretty close there for 3 in my personal opinion. But if you all are 2017, you probably don't have him in your top 5.
Yeah. And the thing with me is I tend to watch the 2017 tape. Give me the most recent, because if you're looking at 2016, well, there are weaknesses that might show that are improved by the next season. So that's kind of the way I look at things. So I mean, I didn't watch 2016 Harold Landry. There's just not enough time here. So I watched 2017. But, I'll get into that. All right, so number 5, Now, I'm worried about putting him at number 5 because the way the NFL has come down on a lot of different things and a lot of off-the-field stuff. You look at Randy Gregory and guys like Aldon Smith and guys who can't even play football because they can't get their lives straight off the field.
Yeah.
So Arden Key is the biggest risk in this draft. And the other thing is there's some inconsistent tape with him too. So I don't know what that's all about. If you watch certain games, you're saying to yourself, well, what's the big fuss about him? And then there's other games where he flashes his potential. So Arden Key is my number 5, but I don't feel good about it.
I hear you, Adrian. I don't have him in my top 5. Personally, I wouldn't take him until after the 3rd round, just because he's got so many off-the-field situations. And even, like, just physically. I mean, there were points where he was listed as, like, 230, and then there's reports that he came into different, like, tryouts, and he was weighing, like, 270. So I'm just like, what is going on in your weight, man? Like, I know maybe 230 is light, but putting on that much weight that fast, I don't care who your nutritionist is, that's just scary. So, yeah, Adrian, I hear you because he has an unbelievable upside. His upside could easily be the best defensive end in this class. But off the field stuff, I can't draft them. So my 5 guy is Lorenzo Carter from Georgia. Speed, 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 speed. That's his game, man. You put on that Notre Dame tape, he's got Mike McGlinchey doing 360s every other snap, because he's got no ability to stay with Lorenzo Carter. But to be fair, Lorenzo Carter is a guy, let me give you his measurables. 6'6", 250, ran a 4.4 in the 40. So he is a flat-out freak athletically, but he's incredibly raw in everything he does. If he can't win with speed, that's about it. So I have him as a 3-4 edge guy, probably more in sub-package situations early, but he would really benefit from going to a team that has like a stud. Say you go to like the Baltimore Ravens with a guy like Terrell Suggs who could really help polish his game out. He could be an absolute monster. So I have him as my 5th edge player in this draft class.
All right. So there we go. All right. So, yeah, Harold Landry didn't make it in my top 5, and I am worried about his ability to stop the run and set an edge. And so many times where I just saw him get washed. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Vinny Curry did improve. Like if you look at an Eagles example, he did improve against the run this year. So maybe he's a guy that can, kind of get coached up. And if he does, then all of a sudden you're looking at a top 5 edge rusher in Harold Landry. So we'll see. I mean, maybe I should have watched the 2016 tape because he went from 16.5 sacks to 5 last year.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where I'm at fault with him.
I see your concerns. I mean, honestly, his measurables are pretty similar to Brandon Graham. He's a little shorter than you would like, not super long-armed than you would like, and he's pretty good at the point of contact, but he's not an elite-level athlete. So I see all your negatives you have there, Adrian. Honestly, he's still going to be a first-round pick because this is not a very good edge class.
Yeah. All right, you got your little PowerPoint or your spreadsheet, I mean?
Let's do it. So let's talk about edge guys first here. So taking a peek here, and Adrian, you're seeing my screen, right, brother?
Yes, I do.
All right. So when we talk about, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Oop, that's probably a little bit too much. Split the difference here. There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
So when we talk about edge guys, okay, depending on if you're a 3-4 or your 4-3 team, it really changes where you line up your defensive end or your outside linebacker. Completely changes things. So let's talk about a bigger guy here, all right? So a bigger guy that maybe is a 3-4. We don't really have a lot of 3-4 defensive ends. I characterize 3-4 defensive ends as interior guys, but we'll talk about that in our interior grouping. So for edge guys, I say, hey, anyone who can play 4-4 and out, that's what I consider an edge guy. Now, if we look at a guy like Lorenzo Carter, I don't think he's ever going to be able to play head up on a tackle, meaning I don't think he's ever going to put his hand in the dirt full time. I think he's always going to have to be standing up, coming off the edge. And then you look at a guy like Chubb and Davenport. These guys, I think, are those true stud 4-3 defensive ends, the guys that you think about like Julius Peppers of the world. That's where I kind of see these type of guys fitting. Hubbard, for example, he's a guy, he maybe could stand up down the line, but you think about like how the Patriots used Rob Ninkovich, like they had him stand up, but it would be towards the boundary and obvious run situations. So it wasn't like he was really, putting too much downtime of him. And then Landry's a great example. That 252, that's just too light. And his frame at being 6'3", it's not like he can really put a ton of weight on. He has to be a defensive end. There's no way he can really stand up.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what Duke Ejiofor's measurables were. So maybe I'll look that up real quick. The other thing about Ejiofor is he lined up inside sometimes. So you look at a guy that if you really want to, I mean, I don't know if he would do that at the NFL level, but at Wake Forest with not that much talent there, you saw a guy that would line up as defensive end and defensive tackle at times, and because his swim move's so good, he was able to win inside.
Yeah, that's fair, Adrian. I mean, we talk about on third down sub packages, right? That's why all of a sudden you see Brandon Graham kick from defensive end, inside defensive tackle, and things like that. So, yeah, you could see situations like that, but that's when it's going to be 3rd and 7 plus. 3rd and 4, probably not. But, yeah, he could bring that versatility. I see that, Adrian, of what you're saying there, brother.
Yeah. I'm not seeing any combine results, so maybe he wasn't in the combine. Let me see. I don't know if he was in it. Because when I went to the NFL.com page, normally they have it, and I didn't see anything. Let's see. Just one.
Yeah, there's a he tested at the combine. 6'4", 270, though, is what he weighed in at. So certainly a good size guy. Could, to Adrian, your point, could come inside on 3rd down. Probably says more as a base defensive end. Never going to stand up in a 3-4. So if you're a 3-4 team, Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers, it's just not your cup of tea. He's not a player you're really going to value, and that's fine. That's just the way defenses are.
All right. Is there anybody that you think is a little bit underrated?
I mean, I like Lorenzo Carter because I like his speed because I think that's a big burst. You can't really teach speed. I can teach hand placement. I can teach anchoring and being better at the point of contact. So I would say he's probably my underrated prospect. But I don't have a ton. I mean, there's not a lot of edge players in this year's draft.
Yeah. I keep hearing a guy from Tulane. I haven't watched him yet, but Ade Aruna is a name that I keep hearing about. I don't know what that's all about. I don't see him in, like, top 10s of edge rush rankings, so I don't know. But that's a name I keep hearing.
You know what? And those are those type of schools that you get in those 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys. And to be fair, like a lot of times when you're drafting at those type of situations, you're drafting for traits-based players. So guys who are really, really fast, some guys who are really good with their hands, some guys who have great frames. You start drafting for guys with upside. So, yeah, I mean, players from like those non-Power 5 schools, that's where they make their killing more often than not.
There you go. All right. That's it. I got nothing else. You got anything?
That's it. Let's talk about the interior defensive lineman.
All right. Well, that'll be for next show. That's Albert. I'm Adrian Fedke. Peace out.
Appreciate it, guys.